So I'm Kevin Dechamps. I'm working at Sitecore. So Sitecore is a CMS platform. So you have to think about it as the base of pretty much everything you're going to do online. So we started from a point where just managing content. And we realized that with that content, we could build website, mobile apps, e-commerce, and we started adding on top of that. So for me, I'm an e-commerce specialist. So I'm really responsible for that part of the platform, so the e-commerce part. And we can do so content, e-commerce, and manage the data, get all that data, and be able to really see a clear view of who the customer is. And based on that clear view, then we can start doing personalization, showing him the right content of what he's looking for, where he is in his customer journey. So for us, it's all about customer experience, and we don't really look at e-commerce as a way to sell just products. It's also a way to take the customer through a journey and be able to recommend him the right product and really make sure that he has a good connection with the brand and understand what we're doing and then just build value for them, not just selling product. It's interesting because customer experience is something that we've been talking for a long time, but the maturity is not always there. Customer experience is something that takes time and investment, and that's not what company have been doing for quite some time. I think they were thinking about how do I show content to my customer and not really thinking about what the customer was actually looking for. But the conversation that I've had since yesterday have been pretty interesting. Of now they've understand what they should be doing. They still don't know how to get there. So that's really what this conversation are going off. This is what I have, this is what I do, how do I get to the customer experience? And so the conversation were more advanced than what I was expecting. They still don't have the solution, but at least they're interested of finding out how they can do it. So for me, it was a lot of interesting conversation for sure. Yeah, there's no secret to that one. Like, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money that you need to invest into it. And the problems that a lot of companies have had in the past was they've looked at their technology stack and think about how can I provide customer experience with the stack that I have now, and not really thinking about the customer. When I think what's important is understanding who your customer actually is and what he's looking for. And when you get that base, then you can think about how do you get there. But the problem with customer experience is it's not a short-term strategy. It's not something that you're going to see results straight away. It's an investment that you need to make, and with that investment, then it's just not start selling more straight away. It's going to be more long-term, where you actually need to bring value, need to understand your customer, and it's loyalty, brand awareness. So it's for them to come back, right? So it's really the lifetime value that is important. And for the management, when they're looking at really short-term, like quick wins, customer experience is not always the solution. So I think what's important really is to understand who your customers are. When you know that, then it's really building a strong base first, like a good CRM, a good CMS, a good OMS, whatever tools you're using to collect all that customer information. And then when you have that information, it's taking a step-by-step approach for the different channels. I think the big bang approach of trying to fix every single channels at the same time is never going to work. So just make a small investment, but an investment that's going to make sense in a good base. And then when you have that base, it's really start thinking of how do I connect all those channels together. I think that really is the key. For data, there are two points that needs to be improved. Right? First is clearly the collection of the data. We've been talking about omni-channels, and now the customer has way more expectation than what he had before, and there's so many touch points. There's the mobile app, and there's the social medias, and the desktop website, and there's so many different channels, and the customer at the end of the day doesn't care about the fact that you're a company that has 5,000 employees or it's 25 different channels. When he's talking to you, he's talking to you, and he expects you to remember that, right? But it makes it way more complex for you to collect all that data because all these channels are separate, and then historically it's all different platforms, and you will have siloed data pretty much all over the place, and it's not very clear how do you connect that, right? And it comes back to my first answer of you need a clear plan and a clear mapping of how do I connect that data together, and which technology am I going to use to really be the centerpiece of all that data, where I can have a clear view of my customer. And when you have that clear view, then you can start connecting it, but at least it starts from the vision of I need to understand how I'm going to do that. So the collection is important. But then collection is not everything, right? You need to know what you're going to do with that data. And a lot of companies have made a ton of money selling you big data, and we've been talking that for a very long time now. But then the question is, what do I do with it? And a lot of companies have not figured that out yet. And that's what's really important, of being able to look at the data and be able to automate what you're going to do with it, because it's not going to be scalable if it's not automated, right? So you have to think about understanding your customer journey, what are the different touch points, and be able to personalize this journey across the different channels, and then start doing marketing automation, be able to retarget, and so really automate that conversation as much as possible. And you need the data to be able to do that, but when you have it, is what do you do with it? Those are the two key things, I think. It's a good question. Huh? If I knew that, I'd be crazy rich by now already. But I think there's a clear trend in Asia that is very different from some of the other markets that I've worked with. Is mobile is everything here now. More of like 80% of website traffic or apps is going to be on mobile. And when you look at China and you see WeChat, the position that they have in there is, it's one app that ruled them all almost. In China, they go on WeChat to check their bank account, book a taxi, pay for food, buy online, talk with the brand. So it's everything into one single app, right? And in other part of the region, when I'm meeting prospects or clients, the problems that they have is that they see this market as just another market when they try to reproduce whatever they've been doing before, and they're trying to take shortcuts as much as possible of how do I get to that market with the smallest investment. And so what they've been doing is like they outsource some of it. So they start selling on marketplaces, for example. Short term, it's a good decision. It's very cheap. You can talk to a lot of customers really fast, start selling really quickly. But then long term, it's a strategy that makes no sense. It cannot be your only strategy because you're not controlling your data. You're not controlling the experience your customer are having. You're building brand awareness, but for the marketplace, not for you, right? And let's not even talk about the fact that all these marketplaces are now having all that data and they can compete with you directly. So it's strategy that you can apply short term, but long term, you really have to start understanding who your customers are. And coming back to WeChat is completely different. WeChat allows you to really manage the whole experience for your customer, do personalization, and more importantly with WeChat, all the data is yours. So you can connect WeChat to your CMS, to your OMS, and really understand what your customer have been looking at and what they've been doing. So when they come back to a store, when they call you, you know all that, and you can really take them back to that customer journey and have that conversation and really brand your brand awareness. And it's something that happens in China, not really in the rest of the region, but I think that's something that's going to come. And we see Line really growing up in Thailand, and there's other apps that are really coming back to it. So I think it's building apps and managing everything on your own makes sense to go direct to consumer, but I think also these big apps is something that we're going to see growing quite a lot.